liable for defaming and committing sexual battery against E.G. and Carroll. In these cases, you represented the president in his personal capacity. If a case comes before you in which President Trump's personal interests are heavily implicated, will you recuse yourself?
Senator, I've been very proud to represent the president.
Well, will you
those
recuse
cases.
yourself?
I will recuse from any case I've been personally involved in. For any other case, I would consult the judicial canons and the appropriate recusal rules. I may need to consult with my colleagues.
Well, considering the kind of representation that you've provided, President Trump, you do cite the canons of ethics and the code of conduct for United States judges requires a judge to disqualify himself, quote, in a proceeding in which the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, end quote. I would say that in any case involving President Trump's personal interests, you should recuse yourself because it is very clear where your loyalties lie.
Today, we are diving straight into the epicenter of a shockwave at the U.S. Senate, a fiery confrontation between Senator Mazie Hirono and John Smith, a federal judicial nominee handpicked by Donald Trump. In just one brief hearing, Mr. Smith exposed a severe corruption of the justice system, revealing 3 fatal cracks. There was the dead silence, the outright refusal to define the buzzword woke ideology that he himself used to rile up right-wing voters. There is the evasive, cowardly refusal to acknowledge the insurrectionist intent of the January 6th mob, and the absolute climax, his refusal to commit to recusing himself from cases involving Donald Trump. Despite having served as the former president's personal defense attorney in a sexual abuse case, why is this confrontation an existential matter for America? Remember, a president only serves for 4 or 8 years, but a federal judge is a lifetime appointment. The people sitting in these seats will hold the power to reshape society, stripping away or protecting the rights of millions of Americans for the next 30 to 40 years. That supreme power demands absolute independence. Yet, what we are about to witness is the moment someone expected to become. The scales of justice would rather deny historical facts and bend ethical rules than risk offending the former president who elevated him. Let's dive straight into the raw tapes, brick by brick. It all started when Senator Hirono brought up a deeply partisan article that Mr. Smith himself wrote on Breitbart just a few months ago in July 2024, where he called for a fight against the so-called woke ideology. Listen closely to how the senator sets the trap and how this nominee squirms.
Mr. Smith, on July 30th, 2024, you wrote a post on Breitbart endorsing a Missouri Attorney General candidate. Do you recall that post?
I do, Senator.
So in that post, you wrote, quote, Republican attorneys general are critical in the fight against the radical left. We need true conservatives to defeat the abortion industrial complex, the lawlessness plaguing blue cities, and the woke ideology invading our schools, end quote. Can you define the word woke?
Senator, I was very proud to support my friend who was running in that election. That was a piece of political advocacy, and as I was explaining to one of your colleagues earlier, the partisan views or political activity I've had before would play no bearing on my role as a judge.
Well, you're not responding to my question. Can you define for me what constitutes woke ideology? You wrote it. You meant something. I'd just like you to tell us what you meant by that.
Yeah, Senator, in the course of a political campaign, that was a piece that I put out in support of my friend. But as a judicial nominee, I don't think it's appropriate for me to start commenting on political views because as a judge, I would not be applying those partisan or personal views while I was on the bench.
Many viewers watching this will just think Hirono is trying to embarrass Smith. No, she is establishing a fundamental test of judicial integrity. Why did she press him to define the word woke? She explained it very clearly during the hearing. The president has issued executive orders aimed at eliminating DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across government agencies. Thousands of lawsuits regarding discrimination, education, and labor rights are and will be brought before federal courts using these exact terms like DEI and woke. If a judge publicly calls it an ideology invading our schools that needs to be defeated on a right-wing outlet, how can he impartially preside over a civil rights case? Furthermore, look at the intellectual laziness here. Judges are people who must dissect and live by the precision of legal language. Every comma in the Constitution can decide a person's fate. Yet, he borrows an inflammatory political dog whistle from extremist campaigns and then refuses to define it under oath before Congress. His evasion proves one thing. He knows full well the term has no legal basis. When a nominee uses political rhetoric to build his reputation, but then uses his judicial robe to dodge accountability for that very rhetoric, he has forfeited his independence. After exposing the emptiness of Smith's argument, Hirono doesn't let him breathe. She moves on to a much larger issue, a judge's ability to recognize objective truth. January 6th is not a political opinion. It is a historical event that has been established by hundreds of federal court convictions. But look at how this judicial nominee answers a question about an undeniable fact.
In the process of certifying the electoral votes on January 6th. Do you acknowledge that rioters on January 6th sought to stop this process to prevent Joe Biden from being the president? If that's a yes or no question.
So I understand that the counting of electoral votes was interrupted on January 6th. I want to be very careful in getting beyond too much further beyond that because there is still active litigation.
I think it's pretty clear what the rioters' intents were, and in fact, if you don't want to, you won't answer that straightforward question. I have another one. Do you also acknowledge that a number of these rioters, some 1,500 or so of them, were convicted, and that President Trump pardoned them? Do you acknowledge that fact? Yes or no?
I think
this is the most institutionally alarming moment of the entire hearing. It is more dangerous than any partisan view. Hirono is asking him to confirm facts that have been definitively established by law. 1,500 people were convicted for rioting and obstructing Congress, but he calls it an interruption of the counting of electoral votes and uses active litigation as an excuse not to state the true intent of the mob. This evasion is not legal prudence. It is absolute political submission. Why is this so dangerous? The core job of a judge is to evaluate evidence and determine the truth. If a judge cannot look straight at the conviction, records of the very court system he is about to join, and pretends the matter isn't settled just because that truth is inconvenient for the man who nominated him, how can the public trust him with more complex cases? When Hiro forces him to admit that Trump pardoned these rioters, his hesitation, I think that is what happened, is the manifestation of a terrified man. He is trapped between undeniable legal reality and the fear of upsetting the power center that dictates his career. This is how the judiciary is stripped of objective truth. Hirono returns to the exact shocking segment we heard at the beginning of the video. She points out that John Smith isn't just a regular nominee. He has a direct attorney-client relationship with the president.
So, Mr. Smith, you have represented President Trump in multiple lawsuits in which he has been found liable for defaming and committing sexual battery against E. Jean Carroll. In these cases, you represented the president in his personal capacity. If a case comes before you in which President Trump's personal interests are heavily implicated, will you recuse yourself?
Senator, I've been very proud to represent the president.
Well, will you
those
recuse
cases.
yourself?
I will recuse from any case I've been personally involved in. For any other case, I would consult the judicial canons and the appropriate recusal rules. I may need to consult with my colleagues.
Well, considering the kind of representation that you've provided President Trump, you do cite the canons of ethics and the code of conduct for United States judges requires a judge to disqualify himself, quote, in a proceeding in which the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned, end quote. I would say that in any case involving President Trump's personal interests, you should recuse yourself because it is very clear where your loyalties lie.
This is the crux of the judicial capture. The U.S. Code of Conduct for United States judges states very clearly, a judge must disqualify himself in a proceeding in which the judge's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Having served as a defense attorney in the president's personal sexual abuse case is the textbook definition of a conflict of interest. Instead of delivering a definitive yes, to protect the integrity of the court. He says he is proud and will consult. That answer sets a devastating precedent. Judges are being appointed not to protect the Constitution, but to act as lifetime legal shields for their former clients. What we have just dissected together isn't just a boring Senate committee hearing. It is a detailed blueprint of how a democratic system gets bent from the inside out. It doesn't start with tanks or the military. It starts with men in black robes sitting on federal benches whose oath to the Constitution has been replaced by an oath of loyalty to an individual. It starts when clear historical facts are dismissed as active litigation, and when legal impartiality becomes an opinion to be consulted. Senator Mazie Hirono wasn't just asking Mr. Smith questions. She was leaving a record for history, proving that the people greenlighting this erosion know exactly what they are doing. If you've watched up to this minute and feel the weight of this analysis, you are exactly the kind of audience my channel is made for. If you found this analysis helpful, please hit the like button so this video can reach a wider audience. Don't forget to drop your comments below on how Mr. Smith dodged the questions. I will read them all. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because the truths hidden behind the corridors of power in Washington will always be stripped bare right here. Thank you for watching.